Ed Husic. Ed, good to see you. First of all, just want to get your thoughts on Pfizer being, it looks as though it's going to be approved today for people aged or kids aged over 12 to 16. Do you support that?
Well, obviously, if the medical authorities are making that call, you take that on board. I guess my big question is, where are we going to get the supply? Now, I've been talking with local doctors whose practices haven't been fully stocked with the supply that they need for their customer or their patient base. We've had queuing in my part of Western Sydney, where at the end of the queue, people are told, sorry, we've run out. There's no rhyme or reason, based on discussions I had last night with GPs, about how they get the dose numbers that they do. We've had only one in 4 aged care workers that have been vaccinated. That was supposed to happen by May. 1 in 4 disability care workers are vaccinated by now. They should have happened in May. And now the view is that we'll get this wider vaccination happening. And it really all comes down to the fact that the government has really well and truly botched this rollout. Not enough supply brought in, not enough supply made here.
Do you, just back on the kids for just one more, I mean, there's so much hesitancy out there for those who are older. We of course know that, but this is a new kettle of fish, isn't it? I mean, I'm wondering if parents are going to be more hesitant, given what's going on, about giving the jab to their kids aged between 12 and 16. Do you have those concerns as well?
Well, there are concerns, Pete, that have been raised again by doctors in my area. Those GPs have been saying that hesitancy is a real issue. They say that AstraZeneca is a very effective vaccine. They want people in certain age groups that can do that to go out and get it. Obviously, there's a lot of support for the Pfizer vaccine, but we don't have the supply. And the government, because it didn't have an effective public information campaign to counter some of this stuff, it's created some of this hesitancy and not encouraging people to get vaccinated. But having said that, out in my area, in the vaccination hubs, for example, that have been set up in Rooty Hill, there's a full complement of people or full roll-up of people that are there to get vaccinated. But again, I think it's the case that the reason we've got those big lines is because the supply issues haven't been sorted out by the federal government.
Do you think the Prime Minister is right to push back against ATAGI now?
I don't like what this messaging, the way that he's come out on this at all. This looks clearly like he is scapegoating ATAGI for broader problems that he's had in vaccine supply. And I don't think it's right that the experts that are on that, people that are trying to do their best, are being disrespected in this way. The shortcomings for this process fall at the feet of the Prime Minister. I mean, he looked very sincere in apologising this week, because he knew if he didn't look sincere, he'd be in trouble. Because you look at this week, Pete, 13 million people in lockdown. You've got a case where he's being punished in the polls, roasted by morning radio critics. He's getting more and more pointed questions by the press gallery. And he felt like he just had to do this at the end of the week. And we've seen this before from this bloke, where the jaws jutted out and then he does a quick retreat. He did this in the bushfires, and now he's doing it with the vaccine rollout, where he only apologises to get himself out of a jam, or he blames someone else like ATAGI or the states or someone else. We just need him to step up, get the job done. That's all that needs to happen.
But doesn't ATAGI have a role to play by changing that advice?
They make their calls based on what they're seeing on the ground and the international evidence that's coming through. And yes, the Prime Minister is right in part in saying that it's up to leaders and people in positions of authority to test that. But it's not the case that he does that in some respect retrospectively, blaming ATAGI for problems that he's experienced over the course of the rollout. If he was stepping up and doing his job early, that would have been dealt with sooner. But as I said, my issue with the way that the feds work is that they're quick to blame someone else, quick to go on the front foot doing that, and not accept responsibility themselves. And I just don't think that's the sign of true leadership.
So did you buy his apology yesterday?
I think, as I said, he looked very sincere in making it, but he knew he had to do it. And I don't think that's the best way to make an apology. He should have just been upfront earlier in doing that. And the other thing I've got to say that's concerning me, Pete, is the mixed messaging coming out of the New South Wales government, suggesting that some parts of Sydney might be released out of lockdown and others will still have to go through.
Yeah. But that would be fair enough. I was going to ask you about that anyway. I mean, if cases start dropping off in other areas, isn't it reasonable to release them from lockdown to get the economy going?
Mate, I get that, and I get people are really they really want that to happen. But yesterday's figures, over 100 people, and with a high number that were in the community that the government was unaware of. They need to we need to have a sense that this thing is being dealt with and that we're getting on top of it and that we're not having these case numbers so high on a daily basis. And I really hope that the government is not raising expectations only to have them dash. We cannot afford that. We do need to get on top of this. And I'm not saying this, can I just add, as a partisan point in terms of the New South Wales government. I've had my criticisms with them and I know the huge pressure that they're under with this. All I'm saying is I don't think people need to have their hopes raised only to see everything change at the last minute because they realise that they can't get on top of this thing in the timeframes that they expect.